Moving on from question 8, we see question 9 of Logical Reasoning Drill Set 5 over at lawhub.lsac.org. We've got a highlight tool ready to go, and we're going to read question 9 STEM first, which states, which one of the following principles, if valid, most helps to justify the philosopher's argument? So I'm going to just highlight which principle helps to justify the philosopher's argument. Again, you can highlight piecemeal like this to, again, just focus on what you need to do. And we should recognize that any sort of justification task is really just a fancy kind of strengthen. So we need to find an answer choice that's going to largely strengthen whatever the philosopher's argument is. So that means we're going to have to identify the philosopher's conclusion and highlight it for clear reference. Philosopher states, to become a more ethical person, one must have opportunities to make ethical decisions for oneself. But if people are forcibly prevented from ever doing anything unethical, they will not have opportunities to make such decisions. Thus, people should not always be prevented from behaving unethically. So, our conclusion is hopefully relatively clear. This statement that people should not always be prevented from behaving unethically. And it's one of those statements that is so convoluted and so prototypically LSAT, you may have to just think about it for a moment. So it's saying that we should allow people ultimately to potentially behave in an unethical manner. And it's because we need to have the opportunities to make our own ethical decisions. So we've got this logically in mind, and we're going to go through our answer choices looking for reasons to eliminate, focusing on vague terms, terms that require additional information, and answer choices that would actually weaken the argument and say that we shouldn't allow people to behave unethically under any circumstances. Thank you for watching this question explanation video from LSAT drill number 5 over at lawhub.lsac.org. If you enjoyed the tips that it contained, please consider liking the video or subscribing to the channel to be notified when additional question explanation videos are produced by my guru. Also, check out the description below for links to additional resources from my guru, including links to full sets of video explanations for entire LSAT prep tests from LawHub. But for now, let's get back to this question explanation. So, starting with choice A, people who are sometimes allowed to behave unethically usually do not become less ethical people as a result. Okay, they usually do not become less ethical. Okay, and are sometimes allowed to behave unethically. Okay, but we're concerned about them becoming a more ethical person, and they usually don't become less ethical. Well, this is all just kind of too vague in a lot of different ways. So hopefully we recognize that A requires some additional information because of those ambiguous quantifiers such as sometimes allowed, usually do not become less ethical. We can't apply it definitively to this conclusion. Then choice B, a person should be allowed to make a given decision only if that decision would in itself cause the person to become more ethical. Okay, so it's going to be a given decision. Is that an unethical decision? Is that an ethical decision? So this, again, is ambiguous. We need additional information. We should hopefully be able to eliminate B immediately. Then choice C, no one should be denied opportunities to become a more ethical person. Well, the entire premise of the philosopher's statements is to become a more ethical person. And you have to have opportunities to make ethical decisions for oneself. And then we've got all the reasoning for how doing something unethical, or at least having the opportunity to do something unethical, gives the opportunity to make those ethical decisions. So C 100% follows the logic of the philosopher and makes it so that the opening statement of to become a more ethical person is something that we want to allow everyone to do. So we should be able to select C proactively at this point. Then choice D, unless performing an action will cause a person to become more ethical, the person should be prevented from performing that action. We're actually not concerned with when the person should be prevented from performing an action. It's about when people should not be prevented from behaving unethically as an action. So choice D is ultimately a reversal of the information and not applicable to the conclusion. And then lastly, choice E, one should make ethical decisions for oneself whenever one has the opportunity to do so. Well, again, we're talking about making ethical decisions, not about not being prevented from behaving unethically, as the conclusion is concerned with. So we can eliminate choice E as ultimately being focused on the wrong variable for the philosopher's conclusion. And hopefully you can see how choice C is, in fact, a rather kind of abstract principle that does, in fact, justify or strengthen the philosopher's conclusion here in question number 9.